Whew. Hey guys, up back with another video. As you can see right in front of me, it's my Judgment Day. We have Judgment Day 2004. So let's go on with this review, shall we? Oi howdy. This is gonna be. I don't know about this one, man. I thought I was ready, but we'll get to it. We'll get to the what I'm talking about later. First match, we kicked off the show with Rey Mysterio teaming up with Rob Van Dam, taking on the Dudley Boys. A fine opener, a good opener. I had an old school ECW vibe to this match, not because of the match itself, but because of the competitors in there. You know, you had Rob Van Dam, an ECW guy. You had the Dudley Boys. You had Rey Mysterio. He was there for like a cup of coffee, whatever you say. And this was just really good action, really good stuff. The Dudleys worked over Rey Mysterio and did the typical heel tag team stuff where like they tagged in behind the referee's back and pretended that they clapped their hands to make it look like they tagged and all that stuff. And you get the picture. And it was just a fun tag team match. And Rey Mysterio and the RVD were able to defeat those evil Dudleys. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff, and Rob Van Dam and Rey Mysterio won, so I was happy. A good opener. Then we had the SmackDown general manager at the time, Mr. Kurt Angle, or Mr. Angle, come out of a box-like structure. Well, if you know that's a reference, he basically there was like a box with a platform, and Kurt Angle in the wheelchair came up in the platform and came on top of the platform. So sorry if I explained that terribly, but the reference I'm making is the box-like structure was because at WrestleMania 37 with the Fiend's entrance and Michael Cole calling it a box-like structure. So yeah, that's where the reference is from, just in case you needed to know. Anyway, we had Kurt Angle. He called out Tori Wilson. He basically he cut a promo on LA and where they were and the local sports team Heat, and then he was on about Eddie Guerrero. A lot of references to the Mexicans, Mexican illegals and illegal, crossing the border and all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of mentions of that on this show because Eddie Guerrero's WWE champion, but it got very old very quickly. I think it was used a lot of times for Heat, a lot too. It was like, ooh, it was used a lot, man. Anyway, he calls out Tori Wilson, who Kurt Angle blames for having the Big Show breaking his leg. So she basically says that because you're responsible for ending my career, I'm going to be responsible for it. You're going to be responsible for ending your own career. The match between Dawn Marie and Tori Wilson became, if Tori Wilson lost, she'd be fired, in Kurt Angle's words. So, yeah, it had some stakes to a match. Anyway, speaking of that match, we have it right now. Tori Wilson versus Dawn Marie, our next match we're going to talk about. This match was terrible. I didn't care too much about it, you know what I mean? The stipulation was there. It was kind of pointless. The crowds didn't care too much. Every now and then they would chant Tori, Tori, and then they'd go quiet again. And then at the end of the match, the biggest pop of the match was when Dawn Marie had a wardrobe malfunction. Her pants, her top end of her pants ripped. So she had, she was trying to keep them up, and yeah, they got the biggest pop of the match. The biggest cheer of the match. So and then Tori Wilson rolled her up and got the win. So yeah, I didn't really care too much about this match. Let's move on, shall we? Then we had Scotty 2 Hotty taking on the debuting Mordecai. It was an okay debut. Mordecai gets the win out in 3 minutes. It was an okay debut. It wasn't the best. I liked the presentation of Mordecai in the entrance and the promo package that they showed on the DVD extra. Um, but apart from that, I think even though Scotty only got a big boot, a super kick and got in position and a bulldog and got in position for the win before getting counted, I felt like that was a bit too much offense for Scotty 2 Hotty to be getting on the debuting new monster. As someone who likes these creepy, monsters like Mordecai or Bray Wyatt or The Undertaker, like I like that kind of stuff sometimes, so I kind of know what I like when it comes to that. And I felt like this was it was an alright debut, but I don't think it was the best debut. Also, I don't think Mordecai, in ring wise, was aggressive enough. If that makes any sense, I don't think he was aggressive enough against Scotty. Like apart from the headlock around the post, he was kind of like it felt like a normal match. So. Yeah, that's it. That's it for Mordecai now. He only had 2 matches on pay-per-view, and that was the Judgment Day and Great American Bash, so done both of them now. Anyway, moving on, shall we? That was fine. It was a fine debut, but nothing to write home about. Then we had the Tag Team Championship match. We had Rico and Charlie Haas, the Formalia team, the crazy weird team of Charlie Haas and Rico defending the SmackDown Tag Team titles against Hardcore Holly and Billy Gunn, another make-believe team. Didn't really care too much about this match. It was kind of forgettable, really. There was kind of some funny spots where Rico was acting all on the how do I say this in 2022? He was acting a little bit on the hoo-hoo side, if you know what I mean. But he was playing mind games, like flamboyant. There you go. He was doing a little flamboyant side, and he kind of was he was playing mind games a little bit with Hardcore and Charlie and Thingy and Billy Gunn. I thought Billy Gunn would like it. He is the ass man after all, you know what I mean? So if anyone would know that kind of mind games, it would be Billy Gunn. But he was freaked out by it. Anyway, him and Charlie, eventually they worked over Charlie Haas and made it a serious matchup, and not too, it was kind of forgettable. And then at the end, Charlie Haas and Rico get the win, with a super kick into a roll up by Rico and Charlie Haas. Kind of forgettable match. Didn't really care too much about it, apart from the funny Rico stuff, so, it was what it was. Then we had, another, weird, silly nonsense matchup. We had Jacqueline, who was the Cruiserweight Champion, taking on Chavo Guerrero, the former champion, for the Cruiserweight Championship, where Chavo Guerrero had to have one hand tied behind his back for the match. This is the second time that I've reviewed a SmackDown 2004 pay-per-view where they had a woman versus a man, and the man had like some kind of capacity, like it was Jamie Noble versus Nidia, and they had the blindfold on of Jamie Noble. This one had an arm tie behind the back, and both times the stipulation didn't matter because they just cheated and either took off the blindfold, or in this case they went behind the referee's back. Chavo untied his arm and beat up Jacqueline and basically beat her in like 4 or 5 minutes. So yeah, it didn't really matter, It was what it was. It was some silly nonsense, and then Chavo won the Cruiserweight title back. So congratulations, Chavo. Probably it was a forgettable match. So anyway, what wasn't forgettable match was what came next. We had John Cena versus Rene Dupree for the United States Championship. This was a fine match. John was still on his rise to becoming the main eventer. He wasn't he wasn't there just yet. He was this is when he won his first bout and against the Big Show at WrestleMania. So his first title defense, one of his first title defenses was against Rene Dupree on pay-per-view Judgment Day. Pretty cool stuff. They matched up well. I think the match went about 9 minutes, and I wasn't counting, so sorry guys. I was too busy watching the match. But it was fine. It was a fine match. I saw no complaints, and John Cena caught him with the FU and pinned him. Remember when it was called the FU? Good times there. Good times. So John Cena gets the win and continues his popularity going forward. Then we had The Undertaker, a special rare appearance, as Michael Cole kept saying on commentary, from The Undertaker as he took on Booker T. Weird, crazy storyline around this where Booker T called himself the greatest superstar in SmackDown history, and he said he's better than The Undertaker, Eddie Guerrero, etc., etc. And the Undertaker came after him, and then Booker T went to a voodoo shop and got some advice from one of those voodoo ladies. I'm not making this up. And the voodoo lady was like, "You gotta go you gotta go to an unmarked grave and get some, and get the dirt, the soil and all that stuff." So he comes out with a bag and he thinks he's got the power to defeat the Undertaker. It didn't work, Booker. Booker was a silly idiot. It didn't work. He threw it in the Undertaker's eyes, and it worked. It kind of worked for a little bit. I mean, for about a couple of minutes, where he worked on the leg. That was because of Undertaker's own undoing. But I think the only thing it did to him was it made Undertaker's beard look grey. So yeah, it didn't really work for the thingy. But the match itself, it was fine. It was what it was, and Undertaker. It was a special attraction match for The Undertaker, as Michael Cole called it, a rare appearance. So, yeah, Undertaker gets the win, and, moves on. Speaking of moving on, we are on the main event of Judgment Day 2004. This is the one I was talking about earlier, about being my Judgment Day, because I thought I was ready for this, and it turns out I wasn't. We have Eddie Guerrero defending the WWE Championship against JBL. Boy howdy. Where to start? It was already a personal rivalry going into the match, with the storyline being that JBL caused Eddie Guerrero's mother to have a mild heart attack. So going into the match, it was like, holy shit, that's crazy. And then the match happened, and I've got to say, the first 10 minutes of the match is just a regular downright wrestling match. They beat the hell out of each other a little bit, and then JBL got the heat, and it was going around just well. And then all of a sudden, the referee got knocked out. Then Eddie threw JBL over the table, and then the chair shot. The chair shot heard around the world happened, followed by a fountain of blood squirting from Eddie Guerrero's head. I'm sorry to be very graphic detail right now, but holy shit, I was not prepared for. I mean, I knew it was happening, but the emotion level I was not prepared for. It went from a fine match to very uncomfortable very quickly. If you're very squeamish, I don't recommend going back and watching this match. If you're very squeamish, I made it through, barely. But a part of me does think that match should have been stopped because I couldn't focus on what was happening in the ring or what was going on. I could only focus on how much blood has that man lost. How is that man not passed out right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I hate to be like that, but it's just like, holy shit. Anyway, the match ends in disqualification. Where Eddie Guerrero uses the belt and busts up and busts JBL open. Not as much as Eddie Guerrero though, but holy shit. And then hits him with a chair a couple of times, and then they're separated by referees, and Eddie ends the show bloody mess and all, with his arms out, posing to the crowd with the championship. And it made a very interesting scenery at the end where the freaking wrestling mat was covered in Eddie's blood. I can't tell you how much blood he lost. I think I think I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere that he had to have a blood transfusion, because he lost so much blood, because he sorry to pull back the curtain a little bit here, but he bladed, and he bladed a little bit too deep, where you take a blade to your own head, and he bladed a little bit too deep, and, gusher of blood. Yeah, very graphic. It made me very uncomfortable, but at the same time, It's going to be very memorable. Very memorable way of to end Judgment Day. Anyway, that's enough about that. The match itself was okay, apart until that moment, and then that just went. It's very memorable. I'll just say that. Anyway, but I'll give it a what did I give it? A 6 out of 10. I thought the pay-per-view was alright, and that's it for now, guys. I'll see you in a bit.